here, right?
The public hearing scheduled for 6:55 is called to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mr. O'Neill?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Here. Has proper legal notice been given of the hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the establishment of a revitalization district was published in the Springfield News and Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached hereto is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on January 25th and 30th, 2023.
I move that the communication be ordered, received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Staff report.
Hi, Commissioners. So as discussed at last meeting's work session, staff's bringing before you tonight the establishment of a revitalization district. So what this will do is open up 15 new D5L permits. So those are liquor licenses for restaurants, not bars and clubs. 75% of sales have to come from food sales, so we don't mean to flood the South Limestone corridor with bars and clubs necessarily, but restaurants that will support the community and some of the other existing businesses. So the hotels that are down there, some of the existing retail, things of that sort. This will go basically from Grocery Land at the north down to Leffels Lane.
Any questions from Commissioner?
I'm sorry I couldn't be at our last meeting, and I appreciate the comments you just made because I was worried about this opening up additional, for lack of a better term, seedy bars and clubs on South Limestone. We don't need that. Family restaurants, restaurants catering to tourists for coming to our community, that's fine and dandy. But I wanted to make sure that we were not setting the stage for more clubs and bars.
Yes, sir. The ORC specifically requires that 75% of the sales come from food, so a bar or a club would not qualify for this permit.
Very good, thank you.
Anything else from Commissioners?
Will it extend like east or west on Leffels, or will it just be right there on that limestone corridor?
A little bit. So Rado Circle, if you're familiar, kind of where Cracker Barrel is,
Yes.
it'll go that far west. About east to Assurance, so maybe a block either direction.
Thank you.
Else? Is there a motion to adjourn the hearing?
I'll move. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Can't start the commission meeting till it's 7 o'clock.
That's wrong. That's
That
right.
one.
6:58 and 47 seconds, ladies and gentlemen.
What a nice.
Thank you. That's called the manly middle school puberty voice. Yeah.
The city commission meeting is called to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mr. O'Neill?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Here, please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Our God, as always, we ask for your guidance as we make decisions for the people of Springfield. help us to take into account what is best for our people and to vote accordingly. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded, but comments from the commission, from the audience?
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Clerk will proceed with first readings.
Creating a revitalization district and establishing requirements to ensure public health and safety within such area. Establishing the 273 bailiff service fee fund within the finance department of the city.
Are there any questions on first readings?
I was wondering if Katie might give us a little more information about the bailiff service fee, please.
Yes, Commissioner. So the judges of municipal court approved a $10 per subpoena bailiff service fee to be imposed when a party requests bailiff services. That $10 fee for the judge's entry is to be deposited in a separate fund with the city and then to be used to enhance bailiff services to the public.
So this ordinance is coming to us at the request of the judge.
Correct.
Thank you.
Audience? Clerk will proceed with reading.
Ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $8,565,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of improving the A, municipal water system facilities, including replacing water lines, and improving the water treatment plant by installing a substation air brake and constructing a liquid ferric building, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto. And B, municipal sewer system facilities, including but not limited to constructing and installing sanitary and storm sewer lines, rehabilitating the city's wastewater treatment plant by replacing a primary effluent pump substation, post aeration gates, flood pumps, installing combined sewer overflow mitigation, inflow infiltration elimination project, and purchasing real estate and related interests therein, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto.
Move to adopt.
Moved and seconded. Comments from the commission? Anyone in the audience want to question this or comment on it? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
To amend ordinance number 9190 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by the enactment of Title IX of the Building Code, entitled Rental Property Registration Program, and adopting administrative procedures that related thereto.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I do have a couple of comments, Mr. Mayor. I'm also, as Mr. Rue is going to be doing this evening, abstaining from this because I'm a landlord. But I want to make a few things very openly apparent. When I first came on this commission many years ago, we had a landlord association, and the landlord association did a great job. The problems that we are experiencing today are not much different than they were at that point in time. But the landlords had a group that kind of, they looked out for themselves, and they made sure that even the bad landlords, and believe me, we had bad landlords then too. And as I look at it, some of the things that were being discussed back then were single trash haulers. And it wasn't just landlords who were opposed to that. It was most of the residents because, the city had gone away with picking up the trash and whatnot. But that was just one of the things that was very, very touchy. Now, having said that, Gary Durst is probably the largest landlord in the city of Springfield currently. And because I was not going to be able to vote anyway, Gary and myself met with Dr. Estrop because we had some concerns from many, many landlords. I mean, it was almost out of control. But when they submitted their list to Gary Durst and myself, and then Dr. Estrop and I sat down, we walked away from that table satisfied that this is definitely not only needed to be done, but it's going to be done right and fair. That the good landlords today, and that's an easy word to use, because there are so many, many more good landlords that provide housing in this community to people who, if they go away, would be in a hell of a mess. But we are in hopes that once and for all, the small portion of the landlords that do not abide by anything as far as rules are concerned, whether it be the building department or paying their taxes or the water bills or anything, keeping the properties in good condition, there's nothing that they do that is fair. And because that, some of them have gotten rich. Some of them have passed away, and their families have taken it over, and it's like a tradition, the carry-on effect. What Gary Durst and I are in very much hopes of is, and we're assured that Dr. Estrop will see that this happens, because I view this as a project that he has fathered, and with the landlord, with the building trades and things, they want this done. But rest assured, all of us good landlords want it done too. It's a problem for us to deal with it. And this comes at a cost to the good landlords who normally would not be penalized. And maybe it won't be a penalty. Maybe we'll experience some good results that will help us in the process of being able to keep our properties up, whether it be in the form of grants or enforcement or things like that. But I can just say, and I just want to refer to Gary's letter just for a second. I can't read it all because it's so lengthy. But, he is concerned without legal enforcement, it's not going to work, and we've been assured there will be legal enforcement. If we don't see that the taxes are collected, the schools are still going to suffer. And we have hundreds of thousands of dollars that are uncollected right this minute. There's another plan on the books that Gary is really high about taking the properties away from the landlords with cause that don't even deserve to own them and putting them in the hands of people that will put them back in tax-paying purpose, that they're not being anything now. So again, I just wanted to make it clear that, it's scary. It's very, very scary. And the fear is always the unknown. But I think that there's enough good that will come out of this. And along the way, in a few years, it'll be comfortable for pretty much everyone, except the bad landlord. And maybe there'll be much fewer of them. Thank you for your condolence. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. This particular ordinance has been in the work for 3 to 4 years. Goes back to an initial policy recommendation of the Greater Ohio Policy Center. It was debated and discussed at length by a volunteer public-private group in our community called the Housing Consortium. It received a great deal of attention from city staff, both in community development and in the legal department. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there was one absolute goal for all of us, and that was to improve the state of rental property in this community. And as Commissioner O'Neill pointed out, It's not that we've got a whole bunch of landlords who don't care. We have some very good landlords. But unfortunately, we have more than our share, it seems, of those who don't really give a damn about the people of this community or the children of this community. Commissioner O'Neill is right. In the past, people have been able to get by with ignoring code enforcement laws. Why, in fact, could they do that? Well, part of it was we had to dig through layer upon layer like a large onion to find out who ultimately owned the property, because it was hidden behind LLCs galore. Your original owner did not want to be discovered and held accountable. This registry will address that. Commissioner O'Neill also points out that some have not paid their real estate taxes for some time, 2/3 of which go to the Springfield City School District in this community, taking it away from the school. And yet I know in one case, the person is current in her home community in the western part of Clark County. But she's not current here with us. And she has multiple properties that she's delinquent on, paying both taxes and fees. With the help of the county treasurer and the work of our own legal staff, we have taken a new aggressive position to track these folks down and hold them accountable. Everybody should pay their fair share. That has not been the case, but it is becoming the case. Thirdly, we've looked at, over the last couple of years, taking some of the property from those who don't care through appropriate legal proceedings and turning it over to those who can bring these properties back and put them back on the tax market and back on the real estate market. Springfield needs housing. Springfield needs housing of all sorts. Recently, this commission has acted on the homeless issue because it was a critical need in our community. And we continue to look at other housing issues. Some of the new developments are a first time since the 90s that Springfield has had new housing development. Now, I looked at Gary's letter tonight briefly, and I want to make sure he understands, and apparently I need to have another lunch with him, because he says he's going to have to raise rent $20 to $35 a month. That is simply not true unless he's taking advantage of it. Because the cost is, if you own one rental unit, it's $35 a year. If you own more than one, multiple units, it's $25 a year. And if you own several rentals, the cap, the total amount you can pay is $750 a year. So I did a little quick math using my phone. At $25 a year, he would make on each apartment $300. At 10 apartments, and I know he has many, many more than that, he would make $3,000 and only have to pay a bill of $750. So I need to get to Gary and get him straightened out, because it's not $25 to $35 a month. And if your landlord's charging that, he's ripping you off. It's $35 a year if he or she has one unit. It's $25 a year if they have multiple units. And if they've got 300, the total is still only $750. So please don't make that assumption. It's in error. I want to thank the many people who hung with us throughout this. It's been a difficult fight, a lot of conversations. The stakeholders, the landlords themselves sat down with us. And you know what? We once again proved by working together, we can move this community forward. And so I am proud to make the motion on this ordinance tonight and will be strongly supporting it. Thank you.
Anything else from commissioners? Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter? Name and address for the record.
Otis Williams, 1627 Yorkshire Court. I understand what Kevin, Dave were both saying, but what we had to have is, in the beginning, Shannon and I, when we talked about absentee landlords, that's where this comes. This registry is the best asset that we have, people that we know. Good landlord, they're going to fall in there, but they will be out of it if they do what they're supposed to. You know how I feel about the South Side. A lot of that participation over there is where the issue's at. So this is necessary for us to better ourselves over there, help our community grow, the ones that are there be able to stay there and not have to leave and go someplace else. Because they're satisfied where they're at, but they just need help. There's funds available, there's ideas available. Let's carry this forward. And as you always say with y'all slogan, forward together. Be good to your neighbor.
That voted.
My name is, Larry Ricketts. I live at 1736 North Fountain Boulevard. My wife and I have owned property, rental properties here in Springfield since the mid-1970s. We've always considered ourselves good landlords. We've always tried to keep the properties up. And even when we didn't live here in the city and we had a company taking care of them, our first and fast rule with them was if there's a repair that needs to be done, you do it right. And you keep the properties looking good. So, we're very, very proud of that. At any one time, we've owned 1 to 7 units at a time. I'm in full support of this ordinance. And as far as the cost goes, any landlord knows that any type of fee that is put on us is tax deductible. We can write that off on our taxes, that fee. So that shouldn't even really enter. It won't even enter into the rent that I charge any of my tenants because it's just something that I can write off. So that's something I'm surprised that hasn't been said. I think your staff has done an excellent job. I was really quite surprised to find out that 51% of the properties in Springfield are actually rental properties. My biggest concern is that I noticed I've gotten into a habit of looking at title transfers and so on, and I see there are a lot of LLCs that are buying up houses here in Springfield. So this is something that's definitely necessary. I hope that you keep the enforcement part of it up. I think it's a good positive step in the right direction, and I'm really proud of the City Commission for doing this. Thank you.
We haven't done it yet. If there's anybody else who wants to say something, go to a microphone so you'll be ready. Name and address for the record.
My name is Valisha Moss. I reside at 307 Springfield, Ohio, 455. My thought on the matter is I've lived in Springfield for 45 years, my whole life. And in reference to the good landlord, there are some, and there are some bad, but there's also a lot of good tenants that are being taken advantage of as well. So if this is a step in the direction to also assist the tenants who you guys are working for to make it so that we are able to have housing that is appropriate, cost effective, and what we can afford, it would be great. And I don't see why anyone would be opposed to that. I feel that if this is a measure, and I hope this is just a step towards something more, because I do not feel this is enough. But if this is a step toward allowing tenants to also be able to have representation so that they are able to have what they should have, then I feel that this needs to be a priority. And hopefully this is just a step toward more, but I'm willing to accept this step as to say at least there's someone trying to do something. But just as there is good landlords. There's bad ones, but there's also a lot of good tenants that are also being taken advantage of as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think, just really quickly, Mayor Copeland, I think that this will definitely present an opportunity for increased dialogue between tenants and landlords as well, because I think it's really important that we also know that there are some bad tenants as well. So if we just keep it completely real, it will, in my opinion, just open the dialogue for everybody to have a more successful experience when renting, from the landlord's perspective as well as the tenant.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Abstain?
Ms. Phillips,
Absolutely.
Mr. O'Neill,
Abstain.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a utility transfer agreement with the Board of County Commissioners of Clark County, Ohio, transfer ownership of certain utilities.
Move to adopt.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Confirming purchases and the obtaining of services for the city and providing for payments therefore and declaring an emergency therein.
Adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to apply for a Recycle Ohio grant through the Ohio EPA for funding in an amount of $11,635 to be used for the purchase of recycling receptacles for the downtown Dora district. Authorizing the city manager, director of finance, and law director to do all things necessary for the submission of the grant application and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
confirming and approving an easement with Ohio Edison Company upon city-owned property at the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport, declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a grant agreement to accept an American Rescue Plan Act grant in an amount up to $111,559 to the Ohio Emergency Management Agency, authorizing the city manager, director of finance, and law director to perform all acts and execute all documents considered necessary, fulfill the obligations under said grant agreement, and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements, confirming and approving related expenditures incurred January 1, 2003 to the passage of this ordinance and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
confirming and approving a joint law enforcement operations task force obligation document to obtain funding of up to $19,840 for task force officer overtime reimbursement for the period of October 3rd, 2002 through September 30, 2023, pursuant to the memorandum of understanding between the city and the United States Marshal Service, authorizing the city manager and chief of police to perform all acts and execute all documents they necessary, fulfill the city's obligations under said agreement, and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements, and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Amending ordinance number 2176, which authorized the purchase of one 2002 HB 607 SPA crane truck, brush truck centers for an amount not to exceed $68,137 through the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program, provide the purchase amount and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions, comments?
This is, help my memory, is this truck a Navistar International, or are we not able to get that particular vehicle here?
Commissioners, it is international vehicle. There is an issue, and why we're coming back to you with this change order is there's been two price increases, one in 21 and 22, and we still have not taken delivery of the truck yet. So it's increased the overall price by just roughly $19,000.
As I recall, that's pretty much been the case with all the vehicles trying to purchase, including some police vehicles.
We are facing supply chain issues throughout the organization, but specifically as it relates to vehicle purchases.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the exercise of the city's option to renew the contract with JCI Jones Chemicals Incorporated for the purchase of sodium hypochlorite for use by the city's wastewater treatment plant for an amount not to exceed $188,104 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? The audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 3 to the contract between the city and Miller Pipeline LLC for the 2022 miscellaneous sewer lining Phase 1 project to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $660 for a total amount not to exceed $531,756.50, and authorizing the city manager to execute number 3 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with J.L. Cook General Contractors for the City Hall parking garage repairs plaza redesign project, rebid for an amount not to exceed $6,186,300.33, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Yes.
I'd like Bryan to talk a little bit about this, a little bit on timeline, what you can share. And it's just been a while since we brought this before publicly, so.
Yes, Commissioners, this is the project related to the garage that sits underneath this building.
Not the new one down.
Not the new one. And also specifically a redesign or revitalization of the plaza area, so the more external piece that everyone sees. If you know, we bid this project back earlier, or back in 22, and received no bids for the project. So we went back out to bid. We did receive one bid, which was the company that you see before you tonight. This was a project that we have necessary repairs that need to be made to the expansion joint as it relates to the parking garage. The roof membrane needs replaced, and there's going to be a large section of the plaza that gets torn up. And so at that time, it made the most sense to go ahead and use this opportunity to revitalize the plaza as well as and make it the more welcoming and appealing amenity for downtown and the community. And the timeline for this project, now that we have a bidder and moving forward with awarding the project, is 10 months from the notice to proceed. So once we issue a notice to proceed to the contractor and have everything finalized, they have 10 months to complete the project. My guess on timeline, just with weather and when they get started with that notice to proceed, it'll be a spring of 24 completion. So this spring, you'll start to see work begin, and then later in the spring of 2024, that project will be completed.
The disruption to the public will be a lot of events that will happen throughout the summer.
Yeah,
We'll
so
probably not be able to be on
yeah,
the
so
plaza.
for 23, expect the events will not be able to be held directly on the plaza, but even events like Culture Fest last year kind of reinvented themselves and found new ways to still utilize the downtown core area without being directly on the plaza.
Anyone else? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into modification number 1 to agreement number 37966 with O.R. Cullen Associates LLC for the CLA Yellow Spring Street Reconstruction Phase 2 PID number 109607 to increase the agreement in an amount of $3,825 for a total agreement amount not to exceed $177,100 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Confirming and approving a second increase in the Snyder Park Tennis Court asphalt removal and replacement project from Fisher Track Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $22,600 for a total project amount not to exceed $505,238 through Buy Board pursuant to the Buy Board Cooperative Program in accordance with provisions of Section 0.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Can you elaborate on it exactly? It's not just tennis court, pickleball and everything. Explain some of the delays that we've had on this also.
Yes, Commissioners. So we were able to finally put enough funding together to move forward with this project, a much-needed project to replace the asphalt of the courts. This particular change order is specifically related to the pole locations for the fence. Once they dug into the footer for the fence poles, they found some that needed to be replaced completely. And so that's the change order, but until they got into that, they would not be able to know what repairs were needed. This project will wrap up this spring. Once the weather breaks, the contractor will come back to apply the acrylic, place the nets and the lines. The first 3 courts, so if you remember the old the setup down there where you would go and pay to play tennis when it was a pay, those first 3 courts will be 8 pickleball courts. So they will be lined for pickleball. And then the remaining 3 courts, as you move towards the clubhouse, those will be set up specifically for tennis courts. So there were a total of 6 tennis courts. It will now be 8 pickleball courts and 3 tennis courts.
For those of us who may not be familiar with what pickleball is, I'm wondering if either Commissioner Rue or Bryan, you could give us some background on what pickleball is?
It's a lot easier.
A lot easier.
Pickleball is just
Tennis.
played with a different size paddle, like a paddle and a harder ball, almost like a
Ping
wiffle
pong?
ball type
Oh.
thing. And then the court is smaller. It's usually played in doubles, or at least most of the time that it's played here, it's played in doubles.
So my wife got me an anniversary gift pickleball set. So Crystal, I want to invite you
Thank you.
to go with me to these new courts when they're done, and we will have a nice time learning pickleball together.
For sure.
I'm sure I
not
can
pickles.
have Leanne set up a ribbon
cannot
cutting where you would play the first game. So.
This will happen.
That would be amazing.
This will happen.
Absolutely.
And based upon the
You can
hype
watch,
on
Kevin.
the pickleball, we need this.
Oh, yeah.
No question about
That
it.
is a growing sport in our community, and this is much needed.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement by and between the city of Springfield, Ohio and the Fraternal Order of Police, Ohio Labor Council Incorporated, Command Officer Gold Unit, directing the implementation and performance of provisions of such agreement and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrown?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement by and between the city of Springfield, Ohio and the Springfield Police Patrolmen's Association, directing the implementation and performance of the provisions of such agreement and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Yes.
name is Chris Armstrong. I'm the president of the Springfield Police Patrolmen's Association. Wanted to make an appearance tonight. Thank Mayor Copeland, City Manager Bryan Heck, Chief Elliott, Jim Bodenmiller, and Jason Vi for their continued support for our men and women in blue. This contract, I believe, is going to help us retain our police officers and attract new officers to this community to help us with our shortage that we have here. And we appreciate the partnership and trying to forward our agency and make us once again a premier agency in the Monica Valley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've seen a bunch of stuff on TV in the last week. That's the worst of policing.
Yeah.
And we're proud that our officers are doing good work. And we urge you to stay doing good work.
Mayor Copeland, we thank you very much. And your guys' appointment with Chief Elliott and Jason Vi into that mix with the Police Officers Association, just tremendous leaps and bounds for us for support and bring a positive attitude throughout that agency down there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor Copeland, if I could add, since becoming city commissioner, I always joke with the number of police officers that I've met that I've never had so many police friends in my entire life. So I'm really excited to hear that excitement. And I've had the opportunity to work with multiple police officers and just being able to hear their concerns and their needs and being able to work with city commission as well as chief and getting some things done. I'm really excited to be a part of that. So I do appreciate the policing that happens here in Springfield.
Anyone else? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrown?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the construction of a concrete skate park, Davy Moore Park, American Ramp Company, for an amount not to exceed $300,000 Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchase Cooperative Program in accordance with provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring it an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Another sport that has withstood the test of time in Springfield, Ohio.
I'm not
Anyone
doing
else?
that one.
Ribbon cutting.
I'm retired from skateboarding.
Clerk,
Amen.
will call the roll.
Dr. Estrown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the construction of a pump track at Sherman Avenue Park, American Ramp Company, for an amount not to exceed $350,000 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring it an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Now we need a little explanation on this one.
Yeah, a pump track is essentially a course. It's asphalt that is laid for bikes, scooters, skateboarders. It's a much bigger course, so where we have like a skate bowl or a skate ramp like we just approved for Davy Moore, this takes up a little bit more ground, a little bit more space, has a little bit more terrain around with it, but is basically a circular or oval shaped course, again, for different bikes, scooters, skateboards to go on it.
Just think it's worth capping that we've just spent $1 million on our parks within the city to help. We always hear, there's not enough for the youth. There's not enough things to do. I know it's difficult to get the youth to the parks, but the city is investing in these three quality parks to make them even better quality, so.
And across multiple sides of town,
yeah.
which I'm really excited to see and hear.
Okay, Otis Williams again. Y'all know who I am. I've been down here enough. We
What's your
talked
address?
about getting a water fountain in Davy Moore Park because as we spoke, everybody can't get to Snyder Park. So why haven't we discussed that kind of idea?
We've looked at splash pad options. Splash pads are difficult to maintain and utilize, and we've had nothing but problems actually with the maintenance of the one at Snyder Park. And so we were looking for other options that spread additional, reach more people. We'll actually be making improvements beyond this. We'll be coming back with some playground improvements and so forth for Davy Moore as well to make unique assets and features for each of our parks.
Okay,
And I think that's what's important.
but you have to realize also the south side of Springfield is the most diverse part of this county. And we have to do things in conjunction with other groups. On certain days, certain people use the park, we've only got one, 10 over there, shelter. So there needs to be more shelter over there to the park. And as I said, the basketball courts over there on certain days, certain people play, certain people do this. So you need to make some kind of arrangement where there's more space available for everybody in the area to get
Again,
along.
these improvements will continue to add, and this is just one tonight, but we'll continue to make improvements specifically at Davy Moore that provide a multitude of opportunities for many different individuals in our community.
But not just that park. The other park we also discussed about too was Baby Park. That's
Yep.
one park
Is that
where
Rose?
Nothing's up there going on. There's plenty of room to develop a whole lot of stuff, and that you should look at also.
Mr. Otis, I believe Chris Wallace is currently working on something specifically for not Davy Moore, but for Rose Park.
Name and address for the record.
Yeah, I got something to say. My name's Michael Goodman, address 1470 Southgate Avenue. Yes, Brian, I'm also concerned about what, like Otis was saying, there in Davy Moore Park. Now, y'all need another shelter. You only got one shelter there, and we really need another one there.
Understood, and like I said, this is just one improvement that's getting approved tonight. There is a multitude of improvements that are coming specifically to Davy Moore to improve playground amenities, shelter, all of those types of things. This is just one contract for that skate park.
Okay.
And
Thank
Mr.
you.
Goody, and also, I'm sorry, I said your nickname on the mic. I didn't know you had a name outside of Mr. Goody. And also, Mr. Otis, being someone that is born and raised on the south side of Springfield, I'm invested in that. So know that you'll always have that voice here on City Commission to advocate. But again, in support of what Bryan is saying, there are so many things coming down the pike to improve the entire city. I'm certainly not going to let the south side go without having proper representation. So like I was sharing out, it was really exciting to hear that going to Sherman Court as well for that area. So that's exciting for me as well to hear, make sure that all parts of Springfield are served.
And I agree with you. I appreciate that. But a lot of projects are focused on in bigger size in different areas. We need to take a lot of time and look at what's needed over there, which then we understand and do something about.
Mr. Otis, we just dropped 300 G's on it.
A million.
On Davy Moore tonight. Thank you.
I know, Otis, I like most everything you say, except the fact that this staff works hard to be diligent on finding ways to creatively spend money all over the community, including these parks. When you see this design for the Davy Moore Park, you're going to be blown away. It is amazing. But I'm just saying, they are working hard and diligent to look at, and being diligent to look at how to best serve the entire community. It may not have been that way in the past, but I know it's focused on now. I don't know beyond 5 years ago. So, up here. You do.
Anyone else? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager and the chief of police in conjunction with the Clark County Sheriff's Office and the Clark County Prosecutor's Office to apply for and accept a 2023 Local Law Enforcement Crime Gun Intelligence Center Integration Initiative Grant through the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, provide funding in the amount of $240,000 to address gun violence. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding by and among the city, Clark County Sheriff's Office, Clark County Prosecutor's Office, in connection with the 2023 Local Law Enforcement Crime Gun Intelligence Center Integration Initiative Grant, authorizing the city manager, chief of police, director of finance, and law director to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said and related memorandum of understanding, and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal requirements, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yeah, I was hoping the chief would speak to this a little bit, please.
Yeah, definitely. While she's going to the mic, I'll just add a couple different items tonight on the agenda. One with the utility transfer agreement, and this one are just great examples of the city and county partnering together and collaborating on ways to improve this community. So I'm excited for this, and Chief Elliott will explain more about what this grant program means for the city and the county.
Good evening and thank you. Thank you, Mayor Copeland and Commission. So what this would allow us to do, it would allow us to enter into an agreement with the Clark County Sheriff's Office. It's a federal grant to have better evidence-based practices and gun collection and to address some of these issues with the violent gun offenses. It would be a 3-year contract that we would enter into. And I think it's important to understand it's an initiative that is a collaborative approach, getting other agencies involved, not just the Sheriff's Office, but it would be with the Prosecutor's Office, Clark County Prosecutor's Office, and several other federal jurisdictions to help us make a better evidence-based approach when solving these gun crimes that we're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for
Thank
making
you.
sure you focused on that evidence-based.
Yes, ma'am.
Because a lot of times stuff can get lost in the sauce.
Absolutely.
So just ensuring that our practices are based in real evidence in real time and beefing up those pieces. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. That concludes our agenda. Are there other items that come before us, Commissioner?
I would just like to take a point of personal privilege. As some of you know, a couple of weeks ago, I caught a pretty good case of pneumonia, which also created a brief heart event. I want to thank everyone for their thoughts and prayers on my behalf. It was much appreciated. I also want to thank the staff at Springfield Regional Hospital in the emergency room and on the 3rd floor who took very, very good care of me, and I sincerely appreciate it, as well as the staff at the Northside Family Physicians Group who continue to take good care of me. I had no idea what pneumonia involved, but it's not something you want to deal with. Trust me.
Agreed.
But it's good to be back among my colleagues, and I appreciate all the many warm thoughts and prayers from you and the staff. Thank you all very, very much.
Anything else from commissioners? Anyone in the audience want to speak to us?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes, meeting's adjourned.